Hello, welcome to Six Tackles with Gus. We made it. We're here a day late. I'm very pleased to report that Gus has clawed himself out of his bed to speak with all of his legion of fans. Are you okay? How are you going?
Hi, Matthew. How you doing?
Oh, yeah. I'm better than you.
Yeah, it's been a pretty rough 48 hours, actually, but hopefully I feel like I'm coming out the other side of it. It tends to go up and down a little bit. You feel as though you're getting a bit better and then it'll flare up again. But particularly Tuesday night was really rough, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I've had a lot of people I've known that have had COVID and had virtually no symptoms, and some that have been very sick. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, what I've been through the last 48 hours.
Yeah, imagine if you weren't vaccinated.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks to all those people.
All right. I'm glad that you're okay. Your voice is a bit dusty, but I'm glad you're feeling all right. And Gus is happy to work. He wasn't making it up so he could lock himself in his dungeon and watch the golf. For anyone that's suggesting that this was some kind of ulterior motive, although I suggest, given you are in isolation, it probably could have happened at it's probably a good time for it to have happened because there's a bit to watch over the weekend.
Plenty to watch on TV. I felt a bit off colour last week for a few days, and it was more of a stomach bug and headaches, and you know, you're very nervous about COVID, and we get tested every day, and I kept testing negative. And Trent Barrett told me he had a similar thing, that there was a bit of a stomach virus going around, so I sort of put it down to that. I had a trip planned to Toowoomba last week for our academy program we've got up there with the new Western Clydesdales up there, but I decided to cancel that Friday night. I was going to go to Toowoomba and then go to Melbourne for the game Sunday. And I thought, well, no, I need to be in Melbourne. So I cancelled the Friday night game just to make sure. Tested negative Saturday, but by Saturday night, I just didn't feel right. I cancelled the trip to Melbourne Sunday. Got up Monday, felt pretty good, actually. Tested negative again, wasn't much problem. By the time I got home from work Monday night, I could feel something was wrong, and 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up in a sweat, and my throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass, and I tested and I was positive straight away. So whether it was taking a long time to come on, I don't know, but it's just a bit of a warning. You can keep testing negative, but if you feel a bit off colour, then you might have to get checked.
Indeed. All right, it's been a weird old week in Rugby League. There's a few stories that have flared up out of nowhere. The wrestle's one of them. Now, I know you spoke about this on 100% Footy. I thought the first 3 weeks, last week was a bit lopsided. I thought the first 3 weeks was the best balanced I've seen the game in a while. Am I watching a different game?
No, you're 100% right, and we've made that comment that teams have improved. They've had all summer to train and get ready for the rules as they exist today and as they have existed over the last couple of years. I made the point to you last week, and I made it on 100% Footy on Monday night. The last time that such rules like 6 agains and those types of things were introduced, they've been introduced mid-season. Tackling techniques, it's been introduced mid-season, and it's caused a lot of problems for coaches and players trying to adapt very quickly. The fact that everyone had the summer to prepare for this and to prepare for their defences and get themselves ready for the season, and it was a nice long summer for everyone, thankfully, meant that everyone was going to be better equipped for it. And the football, the pace of the football, the standard of the football in the first 3 weeks, I thought was really promising. It looked more like rugby league, or the game that I've known all my life, and a lot less like it's looked over the last couple of years, which has been very frantic and very open, and has led to very, very high-scoring games. And when the better teams played the lower teams, it was obviously quite stark, the difference in talent. So I thought that had all sort of balanced out in the first 3 weeks, and then we had a round on the weekend where, of the 8 losing teams, 6 of them, 3 of them only scored 1 try, and 3 of them scored no tries. And as soon as that happens, you start to get complaints from coaches that the game is slowing down. And this is not a new thing, Matthew. This has happened throughout history. Coaches will try to change the rules to improve the look of their football team. And they'll start to complain if they're not easily scoring points, or the defence isn't falling over in front of them, or if they feel as though the defence is getting on top of the attack, they will bleat about the rules and try to change the rules to open it up, so at least their football team looks like they can score points. And that's very much what's happening here. And, of course, there are a lot of journalists and commentators around the game that fall for that trap and start to support one side or the other, depending on who their favoured person is. The game just needs to stay exactly where it is at the moment and let the referees do their job. I think there's been too many sin bins, and I think they're too sensitive around certain parts of the game. But the overall pace of the game, the style of football and the standard of football is much better than it's been in the last couple of years. And I don't think that we need to have a knee-jerk reaction now and start more sin binnings and start policing the play the ball again with frantic and pedantic penalties that are going to lead to sides being a man short, and we get back to ridiculous scorelines again. I don't see where that's a good look for the game.
Well, I don't think you're going to like this, because our mate, the 8th, Andrew Johns, in the 9 Press today in his Immortal Combat column says the following: "The wrestle is back. I hate it. The footy's been great so far this year, but the stats suggest wrestling is creeping back. It's become such a huge part of rugby league. If you win that ruck, either slowing the play the ball down defensively or getting a quick play the ball in attack, you win the game." Andrew John's proposal, Gus: bring back 2 referees. One to stand at the ruck adjudicating on the tackle, calling players to get off the ball carrier. He doesn't want them to have a whistle. The other referee is the dominant referee that can make decisions on offside, foul play, and so on. 2 refs. Joey wants 2 refs back.
Yeah. Our Joey comes up with ideas like this at time to time. My attitude has always been 2 referees, double the problems. There is no place in our game, there is no need in our game for 2 referees. It was a farce when it happened the first time. We never needed it. It was a bad look. I hated watching the game with 2 referees. And it's been so much better without them. In fact, no one has been talking about the 1 referee thing for so long. I don't think the wrestle has returned. I think defences are accommodating, and there is always a fine line in the balance between attack and defence. This argument has been going on for decades. And as soon as people started to concentrate on the speed of the play the ball as to how our game should be played, we were always going to run into these problems. And over the decades, there's been action and reaction a number of times as rules are made to try and weaken defence, and then defences find ways to accommodate to be competitive. There are 2 sides to the game, attack and defence. There is a balance, and I think we've reached a very good balance at the moment. I think everyone can compete under these rules, and the games actually look better. They look more like rugby league and not touch football. And I think the players enjoy it a lot more too. But to suggest on one weekend's results that suddenly we should have a blitz on wrestling in the play the ball or slowing down of the ruck, our good sides had no problem scoring points on the weekend. The sides with the good quality playmaker systems had no problem scoring points on the weekend. It was the sides that really struggled in attack and probably don't have the expertise in those positions that can produce points whenever they want them. So I vehemently disagree with the fact, A, that the wrestle has returned. It's no different to what it was in the first 3 weeks. And sides are entitled to compete in defence. That's your job.
Yep.
What are you saying is that we want defences to lay down for the attack? That's ridiculous.
Yep.
The defence is allowed to do its job within the rules of the game, and they do.
Yep.
If they over-exuberate, then penalise them. But let's not go for a blitz on looking on every little fingernail on the ball or every little hand. It's ridiculous, because once you start penalising a lot, what happens, Matthew? Players start playing for penalties. Players start milking penalties.
Well, they do now anyway.
Of course they do. And, referees have probably learned through experience over the years to realise when it is milking, and you can hear them say that in the call. And when, legitimately the defence is trying to do something to slow the action that's beyond the scope of tolerance. There's no perfect science with all of this. It is so frustrating sometimes when sides concede penalties, and they've done everything they can not to concede a penalty. When you're tackling a player that's thrashing around in the play of the ball and he's all elbows and knees and he's trying to get to his feet and you're trying to get to your feet to be a marker, of course they're going to bump. Of course they're going to fall over. Of course there's going to be little bits. But you need experienced referees to adjudicate on that. As for the pace of the play of the ball being essential to attacking football, I have never believed that. I've always felt that the best craftsmen, the best talents in our game can play off slow play the balls or fast play the balls. It makes no difference.
Yeah.
In fact, extremely artificially quick play the balls, and this has been proven. It's been proven. They won't admit it, and all the people that have supported it won't admit it. But the artificially created speed in the play of the ball has always made the game look frantic and untidy, and quite unwatchable at times. So we need to allow the defences. There are two sides to this game. We need to allow the defences to be able to compete within the rules and the tolerance.
Yep.
And we also need to hold the attack accountable in what they do in the play the ball area too. Because I see a lot of the time that there are sides that are very, very good at pushing markers out of position or walking past the mark or getting off the mark or playing the ball or getting the ball to the ground too early or milking penalties that are just making fools of the process and making fools of the referee. And these are the things that are also thought about in defensive systems, how you not allow a player to do that. How you not allow a player to try and suck you in or expose you to giving away penalties. They work on all this all the time. The people who make these rules and change these rules need to come out to training and watch the players train and watch the way they do it. And things like crusher tackles and, secondary contact with chins and heads and all that sort of thing, which happens all the time, even at training. They need to come and look at it and watch it and not be so oversensitive to this. I see a huge overreaction from referees, game administrators, rule makers all the time, bowing to comment in the media from people who only have a cursory interest in exactly what the end result is.
Well, we are not going to have a penalty blitz this weekend, and we are not going to talk about the ruck for the next few weeks, okay? Because talking about the ruck and scrums puts people to sleep. But we had to talk about it because it's been a topic this week. One of the good news stories of the week, well, I thought it was a good news story, but some of the reaction's been a bit odd, is that Kyle Flanagan's back in first grade for the Bulldogs. Now, the team copped a bit of a lesson against Melbourne last week. Not the first team to do that. Won't be the last. But I read today that Kyle's worked enormously hard, doing a lot of boxing with Gow down in the Shire. I know they're pretty close in their time at Cronulla together, and he's come back in to take on the Panthers this week. Great challenge for him. I would have thought any player would just be elated to be picked back in first grade, but it would be remiss of me, Gus, not to bring up with you some of the media commentary suggesting it's incompetent coaching of Trent Barrett to bring Flanagan back, given he hasn't played any football this year at NRL level. There's suggestions it breaches a duty of care to the player. Some people saying it sets him up for failure deliberately, and then claims he hasn't played 1 second alongside Matt Burton, his halves partner. Now, I'd imagine Kyle Flanagan was doing backflips when he was picked in first grade. I find it a bit confusing, some of the reaction to this. Do you want to make a comment about some of that media commentary, or I'll just leave it with you to say what you will?
Yeah, look, Matthew, you know that I don't react to certain sections of the media in the way they either attack the club that I'm involved with or the people that I'm involved with. There has been a fairly concerted campaign from certain sections of the media towards our coach in the off-season for reasons best known to themselves. And this is a rather extraordinary attack on Trent Barrett, on the club. And I'm trying to understand the motivation for that. What they don't reveal is their motivation for this or where they believe they've got their facts for it. But there is nothing within our club that remotely supports anything that they say. They certainly haven't done their research. And not that I ever want to be drawn into response from them, because that's exactly what they want. I can say that this has been nothing but disgraceful journalism. And, it's part for the course wherever I exist, in any club that I've ever existed or any team I've ever been involved with. It's been par for the course, the type of scrutiny and the type of media attention it gets. But it's fairly unfair to be administering that at other people. I'd much prefer they come after me than anything, because to be brutally honest, I'm the one that's controlled the Kyle Flanagan off-season and preparation, and I'm the one that's made this decision about when and where he comes back into first grade at what time.
Right.
Now, I can take you through the history of that, but I feel loath to do it just to respond to these jackals on the other side of the media.
But do you feel you should correct the record?
Well, there's obviously that I'm sure our people would like to do that. I mean, Kyle Flanagan was a very high-profile purchase for this club long before I got here. He played with the Roosters in 2020. He played the majority of the season with them in the playmaker role, and for one reason better than another, they decided they were going to move him on at the end of the year, and the Bulldogs, looking for a playmaker, brought him on. Now, nothing went very well here at the Bulldogs last year. They had a very poor season. They only won 3 games all year, and Kyle found himself out of the first grade side at different stages last season, and probably only played half the year in first grade. The problem for a lot of these kids last year is they weren't in the first grade side, they weren't playing football. There was no New South Wales Cup football or a lower grade football for them to go back and keep themselves in form and keep developing themselves. Look, I'm loath to do this. I don't ever really react to this type of thing, but this is just so wrong, it's not funny. Obviously, once I took on my role at the Bulldogs and was coming to the club and had seen the way the team had performed and key people within, and Kyle Flanagan is a key part of this organisation. He's a key part of our roster. He's our highest paid playmaker, and that's no good for any club when they're not in the first grade side. So one of my things was to get to the bottom of that, and obviously speaking to the coaches, I actually went to the point of ringing Trent Robinson and Nick Politis at the Roosters to get some history and background on them. I spoke to a number of people at the Cronulla Sharks. I'd watched Kyle come through the junior rep season there and watched all his football as a junior player. I knew a lot of people at the Sharks. I knew a lot of people at the Roosters. I had a good talk to them to get some background on him, his football, his personality, and then obviously with Trent Barrett, our coach, as to what he was looking for and what was happening at the time. I also had a meeting with his father and his manager back in September to get their take on where they thought things were with Kyle and his football, and we discussed it, and I discussed with them that I would take a personal interest in this, and that our aim was to get him back playing first grade, enjoying his football and playing the best football that he possibly could, but asked them to leave that to me, that we didn't want too many coaches from the outside interfering, and that we just needed him to settle down here and enjoy his training, enjoying his football, which he has done. He has trained extremely hard. One of the most impressive things about Kyle Flanagan is that he's an extremely hard trainer. He's very dedicated. Now, Kyle Flanagan, from what I see, and I see most of their training sessions, I'm not part of the coaching staff. I don't do coaching, but I'm around the sessions a lot, and I like to be close to them so I can actually hear them, not just watch them. I like to hear the communication on the field. Kyle has been heavily involved right throughout the off-season in just about every training session that we've had. He's at every team meeting, he's at every video session, and he's an integral part of what the club is doing. It was an interrupted off-season for the club anyway, because Matt Burton didn't turn up until he was the last player to turn up, because he played with a premiership winning side and he was entitled to his break. The team left early for Christmas because we had a COVID outbreak. When we came back after Christmas, we only had a handful of players available because everyone had COVID. Finally, we got ourselves back to where we could have full squads training, and then Matt Burton got COVID and missed the first trial game and played about 40, 50 minutes in the second trial game against Cronulla, by that time with Jake Avarillo, and I guess that's why the coach elected to go that way. Around that time, having watched Kyle trial, and I asked the coach to trial Kyle in reserve grade, I wanted him away from the spotlight a little bit, and I wanted to watch him and see what he wanted to do. I watched his first 2 trials, and then I spent 2 hours with Kyle one morning. I had to talk to him just about his life, about his football, about what he thought he was doing, about what he wanted to do, about the pressure that he was feeling, and and he was obviously feeling some stress. He's a very passionate kid. He's a very emotional kid. There was at one point there where he said, I love this so much. It's my life. It's everything. And I said, well, we need to stop right there, because it's not your life. It's a part of your life. It's a big part of your life at this stage of your life, but it's not going to control or define your life for the rest of your existence. It's just a part of your life at the moment, and you need to have a little more balance than that. And because the way you're going at the moment, in 15 years, you're going to look back on this and regret the way that you've stressed about this and worried about this and got yourself into this sort of state, because that's where he was.
So you've taken on responsibility it's been a deliberate strategy of yours to take Kyle Flanagan away from the spotlight and work on some key areas with the view to getting him back into this first grade team more prepared than he was previously. It hasn't been that Flanagan's been brushed and he's been pushed on the scrap heap. It's been a concerted effort by the club to prepare him away from the spotlight for this comeback this week. That's essentially what you're saying here.
Well, 100%, yeah. And what I said to him was, I said, look, we need to reset. We need to get back. I said, you tell me what it is you think a halfback is, what it is you're trying to be as a halfback, what sort of halfback you think you are, what it is you're trying to do on the field. You explain it to me. I watched you play through the first couple of trial games. And he's a football student. Like, he really loves the game, and he sits there and he articulates it. And I said to him, well, Kyle, whatever it is you think you're doing or whatever it is you want to do, and that's not happening, is it? And he agreed, no, it's not. I said, well, there has to be reasons for that, and we need to sort that out. And we need to get you in an environment where you can play the type of football you want to play, that you are the halfback you want to be, and that what you think you're doing, you're actually doing when you get onto the field. And he agreed with that. And I said, at the moment, I don't think NRL is the place for you. And I don't think that you can help the team, and I don't think they can help you right at the moment. But we need to reset your career, and that could mean some time in reserve grade. And I told Trent Barrett, and I said that, Kyle's unavailable for first grade until further notice, that I want him to go back to the New South Wales Cup. I have dealt pretty much exclusively with the reserve grade coach, David Tangatoa, in Kyle and the type of football that he plays. I don't get involved in the coaching, but I talk to David, and David has certainly nurtured him along in that way. And over the first 4 weeks of the competition, Kyle has improved every week. Our reserve grade side is undefeated. Whether or not they've played the best teams or not yet, I don't know, but it's undefeated. It's been scoring a lot of points, and Kyle's been a key figure in that. When I look at the statistics and data from the first 4 weeks of that competition, he's in the top 3 or 4 halfbacks playing in that grade, and by last weekend graduated being number 1. His performance last week was number 1 in reserve grade. Some of his stats were outstanding. So when I get a call on Monday morning from the coach saying, can I pick Kyle? I said, well, why do you want to do that? And he gave me the reasons. And I said, have you watched his games? He said, yes. Trent Barrett's reasons were clear. And I said, well, Kyle's ready for NRL. And I said, yeah, you can pick him this week. And it's my responsibility as to how Kyle has been prepared for this season and to when he comes back into the NRL. Not Trent Barrett, not the Bulldogs. That's me. If they want to come at me with duty of care and coaching and development of players, and I've developed a few players in my career, then I'm happy to debate them anywhere, anytime. But this vitriolic and vehement attack on our coach and on the club just won't be tolerated. And if they want to come at anyone, come at me. Now, Kyle Flanagan doesn't need this type of pressure coming into the game. He was getting no pressure from us, and he's under no pressure this weekend when he plays with us. It's not up to Kyle Flanagan to turn us around. Hopefully we can be a part of the process that helps Kyle Flanagan become a regular NRL player. He's ready. He's ready this week. He's our highest paid playmaker in the club. He's ready. This is what he wants to do, and this is what he's been prepared to do. No one expects us to beat the Panthers this weekend. There is no pressure on him this weekend whatsoever. And I would like to think that Kyle Flanagan, from now on, can establish himself as the number 1 playmaker in our club and hold on to that number 7 jersey for as long as possible. That's what he's been brought to do. That's what he's been trained to do. Now, I think he's come giant strides in the last month. I think he's gone back to reserve grade, and he's played a game that's more fitting with him rather than trying to fit into a system to suit other players. And that's the way we've played him in reserve grade. It's really suited him. It's helped bring other players to light. So when he returns to the first grade side this week, it's not about Kyle Flanagan fitting in with Matt Burton and the rest of the team. It's going to be about the rest of the team fitting in with Kyle Flanagan, let me tell you. So Kyle Flanagan will play his game and we'll adapt to that. And that's what you do when you have a chief playmaker. Kyle Flanagan will be the chief playmaker in the side. You know, as I say, I don't coach the side and I don't get involved in the coaching, but right now, from what I've seen over the last 18 months, he's more ready than he's ever been. And there is absolutely no pressure on him this weekend. This is not a one-off. This is not a perform or perish type situation. He's been given time to relax. He's been given time away from the spotlight. He's been given time to find his game and find his legs again. He's produced some outstanding numbers on the weekend. And this rubbish that he's being thrown to the wolves, I mean, what's the alternative? Kyle Flanagan's not a rookie. Kyle Flanagan turns 24 this year. He's had 43 first-grade games. Now, the other fellas that could have been considered this position, Bailey Biondi, he's 21 years of age. He's played 13 first-grade games. Brandon Wake was 23 years of age. He's only played 23 first-grade games. Jake Averillo is only 21 and he's only played 37 first-grade games. So they're actually younger and got less experience than Kyle Flanagan. These people who want to criticise and make the statements they do without doing their own research, Kyle Flanagan is the best credentialed, the most experienced and the best prepared of all the halfbacks in our club to take on this role, not only this week, but into the future. And that's been the program he's been on since I arrived here last October. And I've included his father, and I've included his manager, and I've included the Kyle in all those conversations along the way. And it's not Trent Barrett that's made a decision on when he comes back to first grade. Trent wanted him in the side, but he came and asked me for permission to do it. I could have easily said no if I didn't think he was ready.
Yep.
But I said yes.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't like responding to the jackals in the media. I really don't. And I'm, you know, I've learned to live my life without it because they don't affect me and I don't have any interest. But when they attack people like Trent Barrett, who's doing the best he can, and Kyle Flanagan, they're actually doing him more harm than good in whatever it is they're trying to drive or whatever agenda they have. Yep. If this kid's name was Kyle Smith, do you think we'd be going through this?
Yep. No, I know the point you make. Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, I'm glad that you have you've corrected the record there, and I hope from a footballing point of view that Kyle Flanagan comes out against the Premiers and plays the best game he has in a while.
Well, I can tell you, mentally, physically, and football-wise, he's probably the best he's been for a long time, and he's coming into this with a lot of confidence. What he doesn't need is this sort of commentary in the media. What he doesn't need is this sort of focus and spotlight. But he'll have to do with it. That's the NRL. That's the way it is. And we're all cheering for him. And I'm sure he's going to do well. I know the other players will have his back. You know, it's up to Kyle to lead this team around, not just this weekend, but into the future as well, and to get his career back on track. You know, we can't have a repeat of what happened last season. But you just don't flick a switch and change that around. You just don't suddenly wave a wand and it's back to normal. We have taken more duty of care and more preparation time with Kyle than any player in the club. So all that criticism is just not only misdirected, but I question the motivation for it. I wonder what brings it on.
Yeah, everyone in the game's rooting for Kyle Flanagan this weekend. Good luck to you. Gus, it's grand final week for the girls.
Yes.
Dragons versus Roosters. Now, last Sunday was one of the great comeback performances for men's and women's rugby league. The Roosters were down 16-0 against the Broncos, who've only been beaten twice in NRLW history, and they came back and beat them to make the grand final. And they take on the Dragons, who have built nicely throughout the season under the coaching of Jamie Soward, who I thought made some excellent comments in the Nine Papers yesterday, talking about how these girls that he's coaching has helped him to mature and fall back in love with the game. So I think there's some really great positive stories around this grand final leading into Sunday.
There certainly is. Firstly, on the Roosters, and I said this on 100% footy on Monday night when we had Corbin in, that Rooster performance to come from 16-0 down against the defending premiers and the number one women's team in Australia for the last number of years, or ever since the competition came into being, was extraordinary. The courage and the commitment and the expertise with which they showed to claw back a 16-0 deficit against the best team and come out winners on top to get into the grand final was outstanding. I mean, it really was. You just had to stand and applaud that. And they thoroughly deserve it. The big thing for them is going to be come down from that euphoria. There's two ways that can go. You can and to get themselves ready for another grand final this week. But I think that euphoria could actually sustain them. They'll actually get a lot of confidence out of that and realise that they're in any game. The Dragons have been in the competition since day one and were much heralded early on, and the results probably didn't go their way. But there's no doubt under Jamie Soward there is a newfound professionalism about these girls, and they look really well coordinated. They play very much as a team. They've got great strike and great structure. They don't panic. You can see that there's a lot of control in their game and game management, which, having ex-NRL players help the girls out with these types of things, I think has been wonderful for them and more access to them. And I think that Jamie Soward has done a wonderful job with this Dragons team. It's be a cracking grand final. Please tell me they've moved it from Redcliffe back down to Sydney here somewhere.
No.
They haven't?
No. Well, they were expecting the Broncos to be there.
No, see? Yeah. You know what happens when you assume.
But I've got to say this, Gus, with the weather in Sydney at the moment, I hope it's sunny and dry up there at Redcliffe. It might be the best place to play it.
Yeah, well, let's hope they get a good pitch and a fast track, and they won't worry to the girls. I guess no load to carry to go to Queensland for a few days and have a game of football. So, it's just unfortunate because I'm sure they would have had a lot of family, friends and supporters who would have liked to have seen both sides down here. And Roosters versus Dragons is great rivalry, and I'm sure they would have got a big crowd wherever he would have played it here in Sydney. But having made the commitment to go to Redcliffe early, I guess they've got to stick on their dig, and the girls will be off to play in the Sunshine State on the weekend. I think it'll be a cracking game. I really do.
Nothing in it. Nothing in it at all. Have you got a tip, or do you want to just watch it unfold?
I think Dragon. I think that they're better game managers, but you cannot resist the resilience and the passion that the Roosters showed on the weekend. They just never gave up. They kept coming, and if we get that sort of performance, it's going to go right down to the wire for both sides.
All right, Ask Gus. Now, we didn't send an Ask Gus out this week because you were laid up, but we had so many last week that we've got a few that we've been able to pull over to ask you this week. Alan Byrne on Ask Gus says, what's your favourite old school attacking play, and which one would you like to see come back into the game? The mousetrap, Gus? Or what about, was it the flying wedge? Something like that?
No, the flying wedge would be obstruction under the... everything's obstruction under the current rules. I was never a mousetrap fan. The Raiders used to use the mousetrap a little bit. They used to use the dead man too. Remember, they used to have the player laying down pretending he was injured.
Oh, yeah.
Near the try line, they'd run across field, and then he'd stand up and get the ball, make a recovery. Well, if he went down injured now, the HIA bunker would have you off the field. They go to pass it to him, he'd be gone. He'd be off for a HIA. So.
We should get an old game, like one of those ones, and call it now with the current rules, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. How many tries would never have been scored? Some of the players would have half the tries they scored back in the old days. Used to love the old run-around play.
Oh, yeah.
There's always a place for the run-around play. You don't see much of it anymore. No.
The run-around. That's your answer, Alan. I actually saw someone ask you on Twitter the other day if you've got any coaching advice for his under-10s team to try and get the mousetrap right. Your advice would have been brush the mousetrap. I Am Patrick asked what your favourite Seinfeld episode is.
I've got a few. Keith Hernandez with the magic spit.
Do you know I've never watched an episode of Seinfeld?
You've what?
I've never watched an episode of Seinfeld.
See, I've always wondered what's wrong with you, Matthew.
I don't know what.
Now I can see what you're missing in your life. Yeah. What you need to do, mate, is sit down and watch from episode 1 right through the series and repeat 40 or 50, 100 times what every other intelligent person in the world has done. Because it's life, mate. This is... My whole life is a Seinfeld episode.
Yes, I know. Especially this week. That segues very nicely into my 6th tackle trivia question for this week, because it is entertainment related and it also relates to a show that I have watched.
I'm not good on entertainment.
No, you'll be right.
I've got a mate who's a genius in it.
Yeah, I know. Is that Alan?
Yeah.
Well, this question relates to a series that I know you love because we both have a mutual love for it. You ready?
Mm.
In the series, Better Call Saul, Saul Goodman changes his name from what? And question 2, can you remember the name of his trusty, loyal girlfriend? So in the series Better Call Saul, before he's Saul Goodman, what's his real name? All right. Now, Better Call Saul, the new series is out next week on Stan, and it is one of the great shows. If you haven't watched it, you should, but you probably need to watch Breaking Bad as well. But he's Bob Odenkirk. What a great actor. What a brilliant series.
Yeah, well, Breaking Bad was, it had such a following when it first came out. I can remember reading an article where Anthony Hopkins, the great actor, Anthony Hopkins, watched the entirety of Breaking Bad in 1 week. He sat through the whole series in 1 week, and then wrote to all the actors to say it was some of the finest television he'd ever watched in his life, which I thought was an extraordinary tribute to what they did. And it was a tremendous series. And the breakout of that was Better Call Saul, and he was actually a lawyer. He was a lawyer in the movie Breaking Bad. I can't remember his name. I've got brain fog.
Can't you?
No, I've got brain fog. It was some ridiculous name. And I can't remember the name of his partner, who put up with a hell of a lot.
Didn't she? He was punching big time, wasn't he?
No, you've got me on a bad day, mate. I've got brain fog. But I love this. I can't wait for the new series to come out. I check on it all the time to see when it's coming. But fabulous show.
Jimmy McGill. Yeah.
Now, that wasn't his name in Breaking Bad, was it?
No, because Better Call Saul's like a prequel.
Yeah.
So that's Better Call. He's Jimmy McGill when he's a proper, clean cut lawyer, and then he gets involved. What was his name?
What was his name in Breaking Bad?
Saul Goodman.
Saul Goodman, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Better Call Saul.
Yeah. Okay.
No, because that was his ad. Remember, he takes out the ad. Better Call Saul.
Okay.
Yeah. And he sets up as Saul Goodman. Remember he sets up like in I don't know. Like he throws out these flyers where he offers free legal advice to people down on their luck.
Yeah.
And they all line up, and he's in a tent and he signs. Oh, it's genius. Anyway, that's the best plug that Stan will ever get for the new series of Better Call Saul.
My favourite scene was in the first show where that bloke was going to take the two kids on the skateboard who tried to rot his mother in some sort of fake car accident or something or other. And they were going to take him out into the desert and shoot him dead. Yeah. And Saul negotiated it down to 2 broken legs. and his clients were blowing up because he said, no, it's okay, break their legs. He said, you're kidding? He said, yeah. He said, I've got you were getting life. He said, now you're getting 2 broken legs. He said, I think I've done a good job.
Oh, it's so good. So good. Anyway, that was it. Do you know what? I thought I woke up in the middle of the night the other night with that question in my head. This 6 tackle trivia is getting the better of me. I don't know why.
Yeah, you need to watch a lot more Seinfeld, Matt. I think it will change your life.
All right, a couple more Ask Gus questions, and then we'll get into the preview of this week. What can I ask you? I'm going to try and ask some lighthearted stuff. Danny Jecter says, mate, just wondering what product you use in your hair. It looks very firm and full.
My hair?
Yes, yours.
He's on drugs.
Yeah, I think so. Do you see the Sharks finishing in the top 4? Asked the Cast Patrol.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Going really well. It's a much improved football team, and Nico Hines, probably the most improved player in the NRL at the moment, and they're certainly one of the serious sides in the competition.
There's one about the West Tigers here, but I don't know if I want to get into that territory given what we've been through. If you could add one rule and remove one rule for 2023, what would they be?
If I could add one rule?
Well, you don't have to add one. I don't think you'd add one. If you could take one out for next year.
7 tackle sets.
Yeah?
Yeah. 7 tackle sets. They've got no place in their game.
It's taken the art of the short kick out of the game this year. We've seen barely anyone try and get repeat set after repeat set.
it's created far more problems than it's worth. And the problems should have been perceived at the time, but weren't. It was a knee-jerk reaction to a tactic that a team was using at the time against a certain fullback, but was never going to stand the test of time. And there were other remedies for that could have been taken. But as they usually do, they apply a blanket coverage of the same rule to other aspects of the game. And it's led to the fact that no one can score from 10 metres out from the line. The fullback's in the line. The markers don't have to be square, so they stand alongside. So virtually they've got 14, 15 defenders plus the bunker to help them save tries. That's why people are struggling to score points from close to the line. It's simply because of this stupid 7 tackle rule. And some of the offences that you get penalised 7 tackles in 20 metres for is totally unfair. I mean, you're trying to put the ball down over the line, you lose it in goal, and you get penalised 20 metres and 7 tackles. You have a shot at field goal that moves a little bit to the left and doesn't go through the post. You deserve to be penalised 20 metres and 7 tackles.
Yeah, that's
how
right.
How ridiculous. I mean, that's not what the rule was for. That's not why the rule was brought in. Then why does the rule cover that? 7 tackle sets, 0 sets, all this sort of thing. This is, again, coaches interfering with the rules for the benefit of their own team, and those that are in charge of making the rules not seeing it coming. How can I be more explicit than that?
There you go. Good question. Thanks very much for that. Ask Gus on Twitter, and you can get to us on Instagram and YouTube as well. Let's talk about the games. Now, it is absolutely cats and dogs in Sydney. There was flooding in the Shire last night. Is this ever going to end, this rain? Oh. I'm assuming it's raining up in Newcastle, where I'm going to head as soon as we finish doing this podcast. Knights, Sea Eagles. Now, we know Turbo is out. Tolu Kola was supposed to be at fullback, but he's not playing either. Brad Parker's come back. He's fit from injury, so they're moving Ruben Garrick to fullback. That's the very latest. And Newcastle named the same 17 last week. The only doubt was over Tyson Frizzell, but it looks like he's going to play. Now, you've spoken about kicking long and kicking early in wet weather. On that basis, do Manly have the advantage here, given Cherry Evans' efforts last week?
Yeah, look, they've got the more experienced playmaker halves, don't they? A new fullback in Ruben Garrick, but he's played plenty there for the club at different times. And Lachlan Croker himself, a former halfback, has been doing a great job for them at hooker. I think Manly have got the more strike power of the two teams. Newcastle are going along and doing as well as I guess we expected Newcastle to do. They're certainly running into some... they've got some really good passages of play in their game. They've got to be a little bit more consistent over the 80 minutes. And they'll certainly give Manly a run at home, but I would just favour the Seagulls to get over them tonight. And I'll put it down to Cherry Evans and Kieran Foran to be the influencing factor there.
Yep, be nothing in that. You can watch it on 9 tonight from 7:30. Early Friday game, Warriors v Cowboys. This one is in Redcliffe. Now, Aden Fanua-Blake has gone to the reserves. His numbers were massive last week, and he was captain. So there's a bit of a fall from grace. Bunty Afoa is going to start up in the front row. And Scott Drinkwater plays his first NRL game of the year for the Cowboys at fullback because the hammer is out injured.
Yeah, both sides come into this in good form and looking for more positivity. As I said at the start of the year, I really rate this Warriors team, and I think if they can mature and spend more time together, they can be a top 8 contender this year. And they've shown that potential in the first month of football. Aden Fanua-Blake, I think, is injured.
Right. And
they've probably named him on the reserves just to fill their quota of 24 players they've got to name because they mightn't have that many available. Anyway. I'll be surprised if he plays, from what I've heard. Scott Drinkwater interests me because he's a real playmaker. He's the one that creates linebacks and creates tries. Fullback's a good spot for him in this team at the moment, and he can certainly assist Tom Dearden and Chad Townsend in creativity. Look, I think they're going as well as each other. I favour the Warriors. I think there's a little bit more to their game, and I think the more football that Sean Johnson plays with them, the better they're going to get. Reece Walsh, the X factor at the back, and the forwards doing a really good job up front. Not much in this at all. I'm liking the improvement in both sides, actually, but I'll just favour the Warriors.
Yep, little blip for North Queensland last week. Jeremiah Nano has signed an extension with the club until the end of 2023. I asked Billy Slater, I've been doing the Wild Water Sports Show on 2GB in Sydney this week, Gus, asked him if if he'd flinch at picking a 19-year-old in the Origin team, and Billy's become very good at deflecting since he's got a coaching role. So that's one thing he's got down pat.
Why? What did he say?
He just talked all around it, didn't answer the question, basically.
Did he?
Yeah. It's a prerequisite to be a coach these days, see? You don't answer what you're asked. Broncos versus Roosters. Tom Flegler suspended, got reported 4 times in a game last week. That must be a world record. Patrick Carrigan gone with a knee and Albert Kelly out with a foot. And look, there was some news around last night that the NRL were going to ban Payne Haas and Albert Kelly for maybe up to 2 weeks each. Now, it won't matter with Kelly, but it matters with Payne Haas. Now, I've seen nothing on that today. It's Thursday morning we're recording this, so I guess it's possible by the time we get to tomorrow that Payne Haas might be suspended by the NRL. We'll wait and see. No changes for the Roosters. That game at Suncorp, Friday night footy from 7:55.
Yeah, it's been muted that Payne Haas was to be suspended. We spoke about that incident on 100% footy on Monday night. I would find that to be a gross exaggeration. That's overreaction to that particular incident. I mean, I can't even believe the league would get involved in that, or NRL Integrity, or why you'd even report that to NRL Integrity. It's just ridiculous. It's nothing. It's an absolute nothing. I can't understand members of the public who film this stuff and think they're being smart by sending it off to them. And the media has a real thirst for it. See, look, mate, the media doesn't want the football. The media is not interested in the football. They're interested in the reality show behind the football. It's just a window into people's lives, and that's just what a certain section of the media does. And they want to blow this up, and they want to see that. I'll see that as a little victory, as getting Payne Haas suspended, and I just find it all ridiculous. Anyway, whether he plays or not, it's not going to help the Broncos against the Roosters, who I think will be far too good in that clash. Yeah.
I don't want to go on about Payne Haas, but apparently Albert Kelly was being a pest and was treading on his shoes, and so he pushed him away. But back in the day when you were playing, Gus, he would have got more than a punch, I reckon, a push, I reckon. Yeah. He was being a pest.
Like I say, I mean, the pedantic nature of I'm not going to change the world, so I'm not going to worry about it.
No, let's brush it. Wagga gets a taste of NRL again. McDonald's Park down there. I just hope the rain stays away because they love it when we get an NRL game down in Wagga. They turn out in force, and so they should. Raiders versus Storm. Ricky's men, so inconsistent, have had a difficult start to the year. I accept that with Fogarty and Josh Hodgson out. They were cut up by COVID too on a couple of occasions, and they take on a Melbourne team which is unchanged from last week. Gus, would you be, if you're in Ricky's shoes, would you be looking to get Savage in the side there somewhere, the young speed machine?
Yeah, look, there's two things. It's what your team needs and it's what the player needs, whether or not this is the right time or whether or not they're going good enough to bring a young fullback into the side. They're the things you've got to consider. And, Charles Nickel-Klotstack is very much, he's the effort area in this Canberra Raiders side. He provides a lot for them from the back with attack and defence and just sheer effort areas that he has in the game. And, fullback's such a key position these days. I guess Ricky wants to go with experience, but there's no doubt that the other boy is certainly an NRL player of the future. Melbourne Storm, brilliant last Sunday. Look, when you look at their team, I mean, they've got 2 world-class hookers, they've got 2 world-class halves, they've got a world-class fullback, got a world-class centre, 2 world-class front rowers, 2 world-class back rowers. I mean, incredible. And when they get it right, they get it right. They're far too good for the Bulldogs on the weekend. And as you say, I think they'll do that to a number of teams this year. And the Canberra Raiders we want to be at their very, 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 very best not to suffer the same fate this weekend.
Great to see Ryan Pappenhausen back in full flight. He's
brilliant.
Quite the sight, isn't he?
Exciting player, yep.
Yeah. All right, the old rivalry here, 5:30, Saturday afternoon. The Rabbitohs versus the Dragons. Anthony Griffin, the 2 young kids were left out last week. The fullback Sloan, the 5'8", Amone. Amone's come back on the bench, but Moses Mbai stays in the starting team. And Tyrell Sloan's on the extended bench, so unlikely he will play. As far as Souths goes, steady as she goes. I think it's pretty much the same as it was last time out against the Panthers.
Yeah, their form leading into the Panthers game was obviously very, very good. They played the number one team last week and fell a bit short in a few areas of the game. Panthers were too good for them, but they come back now to the Dragons, who are mixing their form, and they have different form during the course of the 80 minutes, not just week to week. They need to settle on a combination for starters, and also need to settle into a rhythm during their games. Jack Bird, I think, has played 3 or 4 positions already this year in a number of games, and but it's still a very, very experienced side. Look at this forward pack, Molo, McCullough, Woods, Tarek Sims, Jaden Sewer, Jack DeBellin. Now, I think, wasn't Jaden Sewer suspended?
Yes.
Okay, so who'll come in for him?
I'd just say Kerr will come in.
Kerr or Jack Kazeski? Yeah, someone like that.
I should mention as well, sorry, there is one change to South. The Source is in, Josh Mansour with Jackson Paulo out. But yes, they've got to do something with Jaden Sewer then.
Yeah. Look, I think just on the score of point scoring ability, South Sydney should have too much artillery for the Dragons, who are still looking for some rhythm in their game and certainly some rhythm in their attack. I would think that South Sydney will have too many points in them for the Dragons.
All right. Saturday night, Titans Eels. We saw them Sunday round 1. It was a great game, an open game of football. This one at Seabus Super Stadium on the Gold Coast, both for more. Philip Sammy, Isaac Liu missed with COVID. They're back. Sammy's in the centres because Brian Kelly is out. No Jaden Campbell, though. He's got a rib problem. Jermaine Asako stays at fullback. How about the flick pass from Bryce Cartwright last week, Gus?
I've seen 1,000 of those from Bryce.
Oh, that was unbelievable.
I've been seeing it since he was 15. Yeah, no, he's obviously very, very talented. Look, this just brings a point, mate. Just have a little whinge. I don't normally whinge, Matthew, do I? I'm just having a little whinge. Yeah. These two teams played in round 1, and they play against each other in round 5. What sort of competition's that? What sort of draw is that? Do people like that? I don't. I hate that.
No.
Well, why can't everyone just play each other once and then double up at the back end of the year? Why do we have 2 teams playing against each other a month apart? I don't understand that. Anyway, just some of those little things. Look, good game this, because we know the Titans really troubled Parramatta the other day. And I don't think Parramatta's worked their defence out yet. I don't think they've completely got it right. And if there is a team that can put some points on you, as this Titans team, they proved that in round 1. It was a monumental first half. What was it, 26-4 or something, 26-24 at half time or something. Both sides scored 4 or 5 tries. It was phenomenal.
It's good fun.
Yeah, but I think Parramatta are now in their groove. They did get home and beat the Titans last time, and I would find it hard for the Titans to turn that around. So I'll go with the Eels.
You've got to get David Fafita more involved. Got to get his hands on the ball. He goes missing too much, doesn't he? No comment from Gus. Sunday Arvo in the Bermuda Triangle. You'll be at home because you're in isolation. It's a shame because you love going to PointsBet Stadium.
Yeah.
Now, the Shire's copped it with rain, so this is going to be a heavy track. And the Tigers could be 0-5. Can they find something? Michael Maguire hasn't swung the axe. He's kept the same team, and it's pretty much steady as she goes for Cronulla as well.
They certainly showed faith in them. I think the Tigers are defending okay, and they're going to have to defend okay against the Sharks. But as I sit here on Sunday, I'll be able to hear the cheers from my lounge room over there at PointsBet Stadium, and I think they'll be too good for the Tigers, who I'm still supporting, and I believe will win games this year. They've just got to stick together and tough it out and get into the rhythm. They've been close to winning a couple already. It will happen. It will turn. But they're not in the class of the Sharks at the moment, the way they're playing.
You normally think the wet weather would bring them closer together, but the Sharks are a brilliant wet weather team. They were outstanding down in Wollongong the other week.
Yeah, well, they're one of those sides where their style of football doesn't change a lot. They're very, very adept at playing to conditions and virtually playing to what's possible at the time. They don't try to extend themselves. They don't overextend themselves. You always feel as though they're playing within themselves, even in the dry. It's really controlled, really precise, and they're feeding off the flair and the guile of this Nico Hines, who's fast developing into one of the best playmakers in the game. They've got a really hard-working pack of forwards. They've always had a great work ethic, the Cronulla Sharks, and as a club, they've done well with development over the years. So, this is a serious football team. This is a team that can challenge. I mean, the top teams, I think, are still the standouts. But as the season wears on, if there's any injuries or they come off in form, the Sharks are the team that can beat anyone on their day. And I think they'll be beating the Tigers this Sunday.
All right, and the last game, of course, is the Bulldogs and the Panthers, so we don't need to go into that one. Now, Gus, we talked about golf for ages last week. We won't talk about it for much longer. Who's going to win the Masters? Give us a roughie that the punters can have a bet with on Blue Bet. Firstly, the golf.
I've had a few bets. I've backed John Rahm. I've backed... I'll bring them up while you're here, mate.
I'll get your Blue Bet up for us, yes. Of course, Cameron Smith's the one that we all want. Mark Leishman plays well at Augusta. He's flown under the radar a bit. Oh, and the big news, Tiger's in, so it's all anyone's spoken about. They're all under the radar because Tiger's playing.
Yeah, well, everyone's under the radar. Yeah. It's been quite incredible, hasn't it? I mean, the whole... And it's a huge thing, isn't it? I mean, this guy was nearly dead, and then he was never going to walk again. And here he is, probably the greatest player in history. He's going to go out, and by all reports, he's going to take his place in the field. And as he said yesterday, I don't turn up unless I think I can win. And those that have played practice rounds with him said he's hitting it really well. Tiger himself has said, my problem is just walking the distance, getting the distance, and dealing with the swelling and the pain that comes after it, and getting ready for the next day to go. So 4 days in a row walking 72 holes around Augusta is a physical battle, not just a mental and golfing battle, and that's what he's going to have to contend with. Anyway, I've backed John Rahm, who's the favourite and I backed Justin Thomas. I think those two are the standouts for me. I followed the Cameron Smith, the Australian, who he shot 60 in all 4 rounds, only player ever to do it at Augusta last year. And I backed a roughie, a fellow called Corey Connors, who's always sort of been in around the top 10 for the last couple of years, and he's got a very, very good strike rate there, and I think his game is suited to Augusta, which is why he performs well there. And he might be one of those sneaky ones that just appears on the leaderboard out of nowhere, and he knows the course really well. He was at $70 or something when I backed him. But, so I'm on John Rahm, Justin Thomas, Cameron Smith, and Corey Connors for my 4 tips for the Masters.
I haven't had my bets yet, but I'm going to have, if you're looking for a real roughie, have a little tenner on Max Homer. He's about 100 to 1.
Yeah, he's going good. He could be an Augusta winner down the track. Maybe not this year. Anyway, my football tips were Sea Eagle, Warrior, Rooster, Storm, Rabbit, Eel, Shark, Bulldog.
Yep, and Rahm and Thomas. I was going to ask you about the Queen Elizabeth Stakes, which might be the best race we've seen in Australia in a long time, but you might not have had a look at the form. But our mates at Blue Bet, they've got the market up there if you want to have a look at that. It's very elegant, the favourite. She loves a wet track, but the 3-year-old Animo is a wonderful horse, but it's going to be heavy as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, hell of a race, but Chris Wallace seems to get his horses ready on Grand Final Day, and this is Grand Final Day for Very Elegant, and I think she'll be saluting in that race.
All right, thanks for dragging yourself up. I know you haven't been very well. I hope you continue to improve, and I hope we can see you back at work next week.
Good on you, mate. Take care.
Enjoy the footy. That's 6 Tackles with Gus, heading into round 5 of the NRL competition. Thanks for your company, and we'll chat to you next week. Make sure you catch the action over the weekend on 9 and the Masters Golf as well, the home of the Masters 9's Wide World of Sports.